Hello and welcome. Wherever you are in the world today, thank you for joining us for the Rise Traveler, Unpacking Conversations of Sustainable Travel. We are here to talk to eco-minded and socially conscious travelers, diversity and inclusion specialists, wildlife conservationists, environmental activists, and anyone using travel as a way to uplift and inspire. Together, we will go a step beyond the Instagram-ready world of travel and take a look at how travel can be a source of growth and development for all people and all communities. This podcast is an extension of the Rise Travel Institute, a 501c3 nonprofit committed to empowering young travelers through educational programs, research, study tours, and scholarships. Visit risetravelinstitute.org to learn more. And now, here's your host, Amy Hager.
Hello, 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 wherever you are today. I am so excited to have with me Maria Hernandez. Maria, thank you so much for joining me.
I am thrilled to be here.
Yay! And so, before we dive into this conversation, I do want to let you all know, as listeners, Maria and I do know each other. We actually work with each other at the Joyful Business Revolution. So, we tend to have some of these conversations and know each other really well. And I'm so grateful that we are now getting to share some of Maria's lovely thoughts with you all. And I think there's a lot of different paths that we can go down today, Maria. And I think where I really would love to start this conversation is, can you just do a quick introduction of yourself? Who are you? What are you up to in this world? And then I want to dive into some core beliefs that you have.
Sure. So yeah, I am Maria Hernandez. I am a self-acceptance coach. Okay. I've come to this after a long career in tech. I still help some tech clients, but really shifting my focus to coaching. I'm a transgender woman. I'm proud of who I am. And I am married to a very successful woman named M. Shannon Hernandez, and she inspires me every single day. And that's the short bio.
I love that. And the thing that always amazes me is when you do talk about your past travels and your recent travels. And so you have been a traveler, your entire adult life, and you've lived in other countries. You've lived in the United States. You're on your way moving to Spain, and we're going to dive into that a little bit more as we go down this path. And so as a traveler in general, walk me through some of the core beliefs that you have about borders, and it kind of actually explains how the atmosphere was set for us to kind of get to this place where we're at. So can you unpack that first?
Yeah, so there's a famous image called the pale blue dot.
Okay.
And what it is a picture of a little blue dot, right? But it's a picture of the Earth from a really long, far away distance, right? It's one of the first pictures of the Earth that we've gotten from really, really far away.
Yeah.
And if you look at the pale blue dot, or if you look at an up-close picture of the Earth from space, there's no borders, there's no lines. You might see the Great Wall of China, because they made it really big. You might see some rivers, which became natural borders of some sort.
Yeah.
But the fact is that all of the things on a so-called political map, as it's known, all of those lines around places where they have a name and they say, this is the United States, and this is Connecticut, and this is Hudson County, or whatever. All of these things they're just made up. They're made up stuff.
Yeah.
The fact that Spain is on the other side of the ocean, it's a different life. It's a different place. Granted, it's not to say that everywhere on the earth is the same. That's for sure.
That's true.
But the difference is not this place is called Spain and this place is not. And this place is called Arizona and this place is called Oregon. Those are just made up terms, right? And if you look at the way real life works, animals of all types, birds, fish, whatever, they cross borders all the time. They bring food across borders. They bring their families. Nothing happens. Nothing bad happens.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to say that everybody should do away with all the laws and all of this. I'm not going to
Right.
promote anarchy or whatever. But the fact is that there are things put in place
Yeah.
because of these political borders that were agreed upon, decided upon, wars fought
Right.
over. All of that has led to a lot of complications.
Yeah, that's so true.
Complications, yeah, for ID and for what's legal for you to do. Are you allowed to go to this place? Are you allowed to stay in this place? Are you
Yeah.
allowed to bring this and this and this to this place? And
Hmm.
so forth, right?
Right. And I think, you used a term when you've described this to me in the past about people decided this is my land, and that's how that border got drawn. And, if you're going to cross from your land to my land, you have to follow my rules. Otherwise, stay in your land and follow your own rules. And, this really impacts the way we travel, how we travel, importing, exporting. I mean, bringing tomatoes home or bringing a fruit or a vegetable home when you visit somewhere else. And so in theory, it does make it very hard for people to move freely like animals can.
Yeah. And granted, people are different. We're special cases
Yes.
because of these brains that we have. We're a bit more nefarious than most animals, although my
Yeah.
cat is pretty sadistic, but you know, we're pretty nefarious as other animals can go in the animal kingdom. And so I understand that we need to have some more restrictions, maybe. We have to be more
Right.
careful, and we want to ensure safety. I'm not against safety, right?
Yeah.
But I wonder if paperwork increases safety.
Mm.
And if some of these things aren't just sort of just surface show and tell kind
Yeah.
of shenanigans, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
Because who you are as a person, it can never be reflected in a piece of identification.
Yeah.
Um, you know, Even if you write a resume, a CV, you could list everything about you, your LinkedIn profile. None of that can really get to who you are as a person.
Mm.
And that's what matters, is who you are as a person. Who am I as a person?
Yeah.
We interact with people from one to another in a way that is not qualified by a number on an identification
Hmm.
or a stamp that you had to pay $175 to get, which we could talk about when we get to Spain things,
Yeah.
or any of these other special documents, cards, etc. Um, None of that changes who we are.
Yeah.
And I know that. At my core, I know that there are good people with no ID and bad people with all the ID.
Yeah.
It doesn't it doesn't keep people from being who they are to add all of this stuff
Yeah.
like identification and specific laws about what you can do here and there and these kinds of things. And
Right.
so I wonder what's the point a lot of times because
Yeah.
you can't police who people are. They're gonna be who they are.
Right.
And everything we could try to do all this other stuff, but I feel like that energy could go somewhere else
Yeah.
personally.
Well, and, by policing who people are, you end up policing other things. Like, you were sharing a story about coming back from Canada, and because you had tomatoes with you, you were detained and got asked a lot of questions for like 4 hours. When you got over
Yeah,
the border, you were buying Canadian tomatoes anyways.
exactly. Yeah.
And so when
And
you say like why, how and why does this actually matter? Like what a big, beautiful, overwhelming question.
yeah, yeah. And that's a true story with the tomatoes. And my wife and I are privileged enough to have had global entry. You go through this process, you jump through these hoops, you sign these papers and
Yeah.
all of that, and then you're able to move with somewhat less friction between the United States and Canada, the United States and Mexico, and so forth. And so we got reprimanded extra because we should have known better in
Mm.
the laws, in the words of the custom patrol people. And
Yeah.
again, I know they're just doing their jobs. They didn't make
Right.
this up. It's whatever. But to keep us detained for 4 hours over tomatoes, they
Yeah.
could have just taken the tomatoes and sent us on our way.
Yeah.
But we were not bringing kilos of tomatoes. We're talking about enough to make a couple salads here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Nothing that was going to cause a shift in the global agriculture business or some kind of blight or anything. They were
Right.
just tomatoes, right?
Right.
And again, we ended up buying Canadian tomatoes at the supermarket in New York when we got home anyway.
Yeah.
So what was all of that for,
Yeah.
right? And
Right.
who benefited from that? Who was
Yeah.
saved?
I mean, right? Beautiful question. And then, when you think about the reason why these rules and laws and borders and everything were put in place is because somebody did bring all the tomatoes or do something, and that's why that rule or that law is now in place. But again, that bigger question of why does this actually matter is really, really interesting to kind of play with and think through. And I'm curious if as we are making regulation and laws going forward, that why does this actually matter? And diving into that deeper meaning of the decisions that are being made instead of just doing it willy-nilly. I think really that's part where that systematic change can actually happen from, right?
Yeah, and it's supposed to be for safety, right? Um, that's always the answer when it comes to legal restrictions, right?
Yeah. Right.
It's supposed to be for the good of all, right?
Mhm.
And supposed to make things safer.
Right.
But I'm not buying that 100%
Yeah. I
because
get that.
I know that I didn't do anything that was dangerous, right?
Right.
Um, there's still all sorts of things that are definitely against the law
Right.
that are still happening, right?
Right.
Regardless of the fact that these laws are in place. And
Exactly.
so I wonder, if there was a way to really monitor the efficacy of these things
Mm,
and really prove that there was more or less safety after a given change
yeah.
was made. I'd love to see those numbers, but the fact is we don't really have those numbers.
Yeah. No, most definitely. And you have another story about more recently being detained on the way
Yeah.
back from a trip in Mexico City. So I'm curious, like, you know, how did that make you feel? What happened? Why did they detain you? Was it your name? Was it the fact that you're a transgender woman? Like, I'm sure like
Yeah.
all of those are going through your mind. I mean, is there any answers
Yeah.
to that?
Yeah. There's a lot going on here, right? And I'm not going to
Yeah.
go and tell you my whole life story, but
Right.
before I was a transgender woman, I was a person of color who police thought was a man of color.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really scary, especially in the 90s.
Yeah.
And so what happened and early 80s. So the first time I ever had a police officer threaten to kill me with a gun in my face, I was 8 years old.
Wow.
Okay. I was 8 years old. And that was the first time. I can name four other times over the course of my life
Mm-hmm.
where I've had police, one or more or several, with their weapons aimed at me, threatening to end my life if I didn't comply. Now, I always complied. I was never doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. One time I just walked out of a supermarket and there were 12 cops.
Huh.
Okay. 12 cops
Right.
pointing guns at me because I fit the description of
Mm.
an armed robber. I was like, there's no way that I bought chips. I bought a Snapple. Okay.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong. Okay. One time I was coming home from
Mm.
playing chess. Literally, I was playing chess, not even good at chess. I was playing chess in a coffee shop with my friend. I had a backpack. What's in the backpack? A book about chess. Cop pulls me over, gun out. Where are you going? You robbed this kid. I never robbed anybody. I was
Yeah.
playing chess. What's in the bag? A book about chess? He opens up the bag, sees the book. Oh, I was mistaken. Yeah, you were mistaken. Why were you mistaken? And so my point is, I've had issues with these
Being
so-called
targeted.
authority figures,
Yeah.
right? Because of the color of my skin, because of what I was wearing, because of whatever, since I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
Okay. And so to come to the present day and find that I'm being detained for some unknown reason when I come home from another country, it's like, oh, here we go again. More than
Yeah,
anything, it's like, it's
that's a
not a
good point.
surprise anymore,
Mm,
but it makes me feel uncomfortable.
yeah.
This is stuff I talk to my therapist about because I have trauma,
Right.
deep-seated trauma from childhood that comes forward into my adulthood, where these authority figures have shown themselves to be dangerous to me,
Mm,
right? And so I fear when I hear sirens, I'm like, oh, because even though I'm not doing anything wrong, right,
right.
I still have this fear. And so to get pulled over off the line because I
Yep.
have a common name, which is what they told me in the customs place in Newark Airport, part of me was like, I know I didn't do anything wrong. This is just more bullcrap that I've been dealing with my entire life. So
Right.
it's probably going to result in the same. It's a waste of my time. It's a waste of my adrenaline. It's a waste of all of this fear that my mind is going through. Part of me is thinking, oh, it's not going to be, but then part of me is like, but what happens if they decide something's wrong?
Right.
Then what, like, I don't know what's going to happen. What would
Yeah. What
happen
do
if
you do then?
yeah, if any one of those police who had a gun pointed at me had a itchy finger, that could have
Yeah.
been the end of my life, right?
Yeah.
And if this person at customs, I don't know, looked up the wrong Maria Hernandez, maybe I would have had to spend time incarcerated before they
Right.
figured out that I'm not that person,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
But when it comes to that specific example of coming home from Mexico and I have a unique name, I sat in this room for 2 hours
Yeah.
unable to use my phone, couldn't tell my wife, sorry, I'm just being detained for some national security reason. Like,
Right.
I
Yeah.
didn't do anything, but they're saying, oh, maybe I'm somebody else.
Yeah.
Um, what did they do to verify that I was me? Here's
Yeah.
the thing, like, all they still had to go on was the same identification that I gave the other Customs and Border Patrol person.
Right.
Same passport. Nothing changed about the passport. Nothing changed about my driver's license. Nothing changed about my identity. Nothing changed about what the government has in their system about me.
Yeah.
Okay. And I can tell you, my FBI background check, clean as a whistle. Okay. And
Yeah.
we're going to talk about that when we get to the, go into another country thing. But I know that I haven't done anything wrong. I don't have a record of having done anything wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. I know that. The government knows that. The FBI knows that. And they've signed
Right.
to it. Someone
Right.
is on someone's job, right? They looked me up. They know for a fact. Now, all of that has been true my entire life. But what did they do between the time that I was on the line and gave them my passport to the 2.5 hours later,
Right.
someone else looked at my passport and then made a decision. What what did they do extra? I don't
Hmm.
understand what they possibly could have done. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I was the same person the whole time. I was the same
Yeah.
person before I went to Mexico. I was the same person when I got back from Mexico. The whole
Right.
time I was the same, right? And so who's they're wasting time, they're wasting money, right? And again, not trying to take anybody's job,
Right.
custom persons doing their job.
Right.
I'm glad that someone's there doing their job. I'm not here to invalidate people's existences and jobs and this and that. I'm not going to make any claim that there's never been any safety or whatever enhanced by having Customs and Border Patrol, but I know that personally, I haven't done anything wrong, and yet I seem to be detained pretty often,
Yeah.
and for nothing, right?
Right.
So in all of my personal anecdotes, I haven't done anything wrong, and
Right.
so my tax dollars have been wasted to find out the truth about me, which is I hadn't done anything wrong to
In
begin with,
yeah, in the
right?
first place. And so you kind of said this, but like going out in public and just generally walking around and traveling, that does create a large amount of worry on you, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so take us through how you've made that decision to make this move. And I want to make sure y'all know this decision was made in like the last 90 days. Like between we're going and going, there was about a 90-day period. So with the, you've worried your whole life. This started when you were a child and it's just, I'm going to say, grown and enhanced even larger than then. Why now?
Yeah, so it's
I know, not an easy question,
yeah, it's
right?
tough. Okay. As a trans woman, right? A trans woman who came to her identity later in life,
Hmm.
okay? Um, Trans women in the United States are the boogeyman of the moment, okay? Um, I don't know why, okay? I could explain. I have my feelings about this. That's a different podcast, okay?
Yeah.
Um, but the fact is that trans women are the boogeyman, especially trans women like myself who came to their identity later in life.
Hmm.
My voice isn't perfectly feminine. My body isn't perfectly feminine. Um, I'm tall, right? I'm six
Hmm.
three, right? I'm invading women's spaces,
Yeah.
but I just want to pee, right? Like I don't want to hurt anybody. You know,
Right.
I'm a wimp, first of all. Okay. I don't okay, I can that's just what
I'm not asking you to be in a boxing match with me,
yeah,
that's for sure.
I'm not violent.
Yeah,
Okay?
I hear you.
I am not violent. My wife has to kill the bugs. She
Yeah.
has to open the jars. Okay.
Yeah.
She's the one who does the personal training. She's the one who could beat you up in a boxing match. So you
Right.
better be nice to me. Otherwise, guess what? You know, like I don't have that in me. I'm a
Yeah.
computer nerd. I'm a pacifist. I, you know what I mean? So I'm not dangerous to anybody,
Right.
right? Um, Granted, that's just me. I only know about me, right?
Right.
But the fact is that trans women who have a lot in common with me are
Hmm.
considered dangerous,
Yeah.
right? Um, I don't know any dangerous trans women. Just we're just people, right?
Yeah.
But in the United States, trans women are the focus of a lot of headlines.
Yeah.
Even the president of the United States talks about trans people and
Right.
trans women specifically, um, for what amounts to honestly really no reason.
Yeah.
Okay. And the fact is that trans people have existed for as long as people have existed.
Hmm.
Trans women aren't the only trans people. There are trans men.
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, the United States has that as a core focus a lot of the time, and it shouldn't be. It
Yeah.
turns out that Spain doesn't.
Hmm.
Okay. Spain, they don't, it's not really a thing.
Yeah. It's not in
Now,
the headlines every day,
it's
right?
not in the headlines really at all.
Yeah.
Every now and then it might come up, but it's, if it is, it's probably about the United States headlines,
Yeah.
right? Indirectly,
Right.
not about anything that's happening in Spain or within Europe itself.
Hmm.
And so the other thing is that Spain's laws for immigrants, which I will say I'm going to identify as an immigrant,
Okay.
okay?
Yeah. You are
Yeah,
immigrating to another country
I'm
over the
immigrating,
borders
right?
that are drawn by,
Yeah,
again, what which we kicked off in the first part of the
yeah.
episode.
But what's the
Right.
difference between an immigrant and an expat, right? It's a savings account usually, right? It's
Got it.
it's a
Yeah.
matter of privilege, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because expats are immigrants. Let's call it
That's
what it is, right?
really a great point.
So their laws are actually sort of permissive because of a lot of other reasons, right? So really what it breaks down to is their economy isn't doing so great. Okay.
Hmm.
It all really
Right.
comes down to money and capitalism, and that's where all these borders and all this stuff comes to different
Right.
podcasts. But the fact is that Spain would like to have people who have means in terms of financial capital, money, and things,
Mhm.
money to spend in Spain. They
Right.
want people like us to be in Spain. And they
Hmm.
can make it easier for people like us to come to Spain so
Yeah.
that we can spend money
Yeah.
in Spain.
Hmm.
right? And it turns out that it works out for my wife and I because
Yeah.
we have privilege enough to fit their structure of
Right.
you have to have this much money and then you're allowed to come. You have to prove that you can make this much money without taking a job from a Spanish person,
Yep.
right? Because nobody wants anyone to steal their jobs.
Yeah. No, I think
Okay.
all of this kind of
So,
lines up and makes sense. Yeah.
right. So, but we can do that, right? My wife's business, very successful, joyful business revolution. You know something about that. Thank you, Amy.
Yeah.
It turns out that 80% of income can come from outside Spain, and yet we can still
Mm,
generate enough money to live, right?
yeah.
Buy food, pay rent, right? Go out and do things. And so we're good for Spain. And
Yeah.
Spain knows that, right?
Yeah.
And
That makes
so they've
sense.
adjusted their laws as such, right? And
Interesting.
so we have permissible, sort of permissive laws in terms of people of privilege able to move across into their country,
Right.
and they don't really care so much if I'm trans,
Yep.
legally speaking.
Yep.
Right? My
Okay.
identity is not called into question. What it says on my passport is not called in question. What it says on my birth certificate, not called into question. Where I pee, not called into question.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, that's that. That's why, and also the weather,
The weather is going to be a little bit nicer
yeah,
than
the
the New
weather's going to
Jersey,
be
New York
nicer,
area. Yeah, I get
you know,
that.
good food,
Yeah.
lots of I like old stuff. There's lots of old things in the old world, so to speak, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So all of those wonderful reasons as well. I'm an
I get that.
adventurer. My wife is an adventurer, and
Mm.
we're just keen to go on another big adventure. We're turning the page. It's a new chapter of a new book of a new,
Yeah.
so all of that is part of it as well. But,
Yeah.
I'd be lying if I discounted the fact that I want to feel safe.
Right.
I just
Yeah.
want to feel safe. I don't want to have to worry that my driver's license is going to be invalidated. I don't want to have to worry that my passport's going to be invalidated.
Yeah.
I know that as long as I abide by Spanish international law and
Right.
I do what they tell me and I follow,
The rule.
I do follow the rules, get the right papers, do the right things, I can stay there legally and I don't have to worry about my identity
Mm.
becoming invalidated or literally made illegal, right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
that
Which
matters all the way down through health insurance and everything else,
yeah,
you know?
right? Exactly. And I mean, the crazy thing is, Maria, you're doing that here now, right? Like, but there is that fear, there is that possibility. And so I hear you. Why take that risk and stay here when you can go somewhere that I'm going to say it, they actually want you? And that's not how it feels here right now. And I hate that for you, and I hate that for anyone going through this experience. And is there, I mean, is there any, as you've been deciding and making this move, are there any regrets isn't the right word, but like, do you feel like you're running or you're fleeing from something?
In a sense, yeah. I'm gonna be honest. In a
Yeah,
sense, yes. Okay. Because it's just the truth. Like
right. It's your
I'm
truth,
it,
and that's
it
what
it's
matters
it's
here.
not the whole reason of everything, right?
Right.
But it's definitely part of it, right?
Yeah.
The cost of living is another reason, right?
Yeah.
And are we fleeing because we can't afford to live here? Like, I wouldn't be lying if I said that's true.
Right. I mean, it's more
You know,
difficult to live here than it would be in Spain
Yeah,
when you look at the
especially
income.
when you really look at the purchasing power of what you
Yes.
have as even a privileged person, and you look at the things that you can have access to and the types of dwellings that you can live in, to
Right.
live for the same amount of cost of living in the United States, could I do it? Sure, I could live in a very, very dangerous place,
Mm-hmm.
right? For,
Mm.
for very cheap. But then my access to food is limited because all those places are also food deserts, right? You got liquor
Yeah.
stores, pawn shops. Maybe you could buy food at the
Yeah.
bodega kind of thing. Or I could move to the middle of nowhere
Yeah.
where it's very politically
Charged.
red, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
And my identity then makes it more dangerous for me,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, maybe I could move to the middle of nowhere, Montana.
Mm-hmm.
Rent is lower, cost of living is lower, but I don't have access to really anything, right?
Right.
Maybe I have
It's
more access.
isolating.
Yeah, it's isolating. Again, my food choices are limited, my culture
Right.
choices are limited. And so there's a big trade there. Whereas going to Spain, I can have a sort of city, suburb, beach
Yeah.
life somehow all together, right?
Yeah.
And afford to live there, and have
Yeah.
access to food, and have access to museums, and have access to travel, and have access to all this stuff, and it's still affordable,
Yeah.
right? Um, that's amazing,
Yeah.
right? And so it's in that case, it's less running away from and more running towards.
Yep. Mm,
But,
I
if
like that.
things were more amenable here, we wouldn't be thinking about leaving at all.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
if the
true.
cost of living here wasn't so incredibly high, we wouldn't feel, why would we want to move it so far?
Yeah.
Oh, we got to do all this stuff. And again, privilege comes into play because
Yes.
not only do you have to have all this documentation that not everybody is able to access in the United States,
Hmm.
okay, but it costs money.
Yeah.
It costs money because you got to have this document. Then that document, you've had it. We had our marriage certificate. Marriage certificate
Yeah.
wasn't recent enough. They got to make sure we're still married. So we
Yeah.
got to go back and you got to pay. So to get remarried in New Jersey anyway, we had to pay a fee. And then
Right.
to get a copy of the certificate, we had to pay a fee. To get a
Yeah.
new copy of the certificate, guess what? Had to pay a fee. Then we had to pay to get this document that we already paid for, right? So we paid for the
Yes.
document. Now we have to pay to get the document shipped to the
Mm.
state capitol
Hmm.
so that we can pay someone at the state capitol to put a special stamp on it
Okay.
and sign it and say, yes, this is really official.
Yeah.
Which, like, we already paid someone to
To
get
say
the
it was
official
official.
document. So then
Yeah.
we paid for the document, paid to get it shipped,
Mm.
paid for them to stamp it, and we have to pay for them to ship it back to us.
Yeah.
We're also paying a third party to help us with the paperwork process of
Yeah.
moving to Spain,
Yeah.
right? So we're paying them to then take this document that has been through all these different hands,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And that's part of an overall process that we again have to pay Spain for,
Right.
right? And that's one document.
Mm.
Then there's a lot of other
It just
documents,
kind of adds
right?
up.
For
Yeah.
each and every document, things have to be apostilled, right? Which is a factor of
Right.
this thing called the Hague Convention, where it's a bunch of different countries got together and they agreed that your paperwork, which we know doesn't mean anything, ha ha ha, because the earth is for all of us. But
Right.
we all agree that your paperwork is just as good as our paperwork. That's what it means, right? As long as the person has paid to get it stamped,
Mm. Yeah.
right? That's what the Hague
Yeah.
Convention basically says, right?
Wow.
Um, and we are able to do that. We
Yes.
have the means to do that. Not to
Mhm.
mention the moving expenses of picking up and going across the country, flights to Spain and
Right.
flights to take our stuff. And we want to take our cat. And guess what? Our cat has to have a microchip and
Yeah.
documentation and all of this other stuff too. So we are in a privileged position and we're using the privilege that we've earned by working hard our throughout our lives and whatever
Mhm.
else that we had to do to get to this place. It didn't just
Right.
happen to us, right?
Right.
Um, we have this option as people that have that privilege. And why not? Right?
Yeah.
Why not make a move that's better for our mental health,
Yeah.
better for our pockets in terms of our finances, better for our healthcare because the healthcare is affordable,
Mm.
actually, right?
Yeah.
Um, all of these things, as I get older, healthcare matters more, not less,
Yeah.
right?
That's true.
Um, it turns out that in Spain, you show them your medical card and you get treatment.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
it. So that is something I'm looking forward to having that in the back of my mind. I don't want to get
Yeah.
into an accident. I don't want
Yeah.
healthcare,
Having
but I need to
access
know.
to
And you
healthcare,
can,
having access to other affordable, groceries, housing, all those things
yeah,
is not something that we can necessarily get all the time here in America. So
yeah,
I definitely see how that plays into the over deciding factor.
yeah. It's all rolls up into that, you know. So is it fleeing? It's like, yeah, but it's also strategic. You know, one of my yoga teachers loved to say, because we would go, you know, to yoga retreats. Everyone talks about a retreat, right? You go on a retreat.
Right.
Um, a retreat is not surrender. This is something that
Mm,
I always remember from this Swami. Retreat is not surrender. Retreat is a strategic positioning where
yeah.
you step back and you reassess what is going to be the next best right move for us, right?
Mm,
And so, in a sense, we're retreating to Spain,
yeah.
right? We're not surrendering to this system. We're retreating to Spain where we can do better for ourselves and make better choices.
I like that. I think that's a really beautiful way to summarize it. And I think it does describe exactly the how you've come to this decision and unpacking that and kind of going through all the steps. It's a lot of steps, it's a lot of things, but it is a strategic decision that you all have made.
Yeah, it's not just fly by night. It's not
Yeah.
just we asked ChatGPT and it said, "Why don't you move?" You know,
Right, exactly. I love that.
yeah, a lot went into it,
Yeah.
and a lot's gonna go into it. And you know, I look forward to talking to you after the move.
On the flip side, yes.
Yeah, and hopefully I have lots of good news to share from the other side of the pond, as it were.
I love that. Well, and that brings us to the end of our journey today. So, Maria, thank you so much for joining me. And for all of you who have listened, if you've enjoyed what you've heard and you'd like to hear more, please subscribe, like, and comment. You can always follow us at Rise Travel Institute on Instagram. And just remember, the Rise Travel Institute, we do believe in conscious travel and how it can help create a more just and equitable world. So if you're a college student planning a study abroad trip or a tourism professional who wants to create more equitable, inclusive industry, or really anyone who is currently traveling the world, and you want to understand how to travel in a more sustainable way, I encourage you to head on over to risetravelinstitute.org for more information on our educational programs. And until then, we'll be back with another episode, but keep roaming, keep learning, and continue to be a Rise Traveler.
Thank you so much, Amy.
Bye.
Bye.